The sun has not yet crested the horizon, but its promise is already here, spilling soft, pearlescent light across the vast North American grasslands. The world is painted in shades of gray and muted gold. A hush lies over the encampment, a collection of hide lodges arranged in a sprawling circle. Here and there, the embers of last night's fires still glow, little pockets of warmth against the cool, pre-dawn air. Thin, lazy tendrils of smoke rise straight up, undisturbed by any breeze, carrying the faint, comforting scent of wood smoke and roasted meat. This is a world waking slowly, deliberately. Inside the lodges, families begin to stir. The rustle of bison hides, the soft murmur of a mother to her child, the quiet preparations for the day ahead. This is a time of peace, a sacred moment between the deep darkness of night and the full light of day. The air is so still you can almost hear the heartbeat of the land itself. Look closely, and you'll see the first signs of life outside the lodges. A woman emerges, her movements graceful and practiced as she adds fuel to her fire, coaxing the embers back to life. Another is already at work, grinding corn with a stone mano and the rhythmic scraping a gentle percussion in the morning quiet. These are the sounds of survival, the daily rhythms that have sustained these people for generations. And then, figures appear on the ridge, silhouetted against the growing light. They are the hunters, returning from their pre-dawn tracking. Their long strides are steady, purposeful. Even after hours spent reading the signs of the land, a broken twig, a fresh track in the damp earth. They move with an intimate knowledge of this world, a deep connection to the animals they hunt and the environment that provides for them. As they draw closer, we can see they are not returning empty-handed. Their success means more than just a meal for today. It represents security for the coming weeks and months. In this ancient world, long before refrigerators or grocery stores, survival was a constant negotiation with nature. The hunt was only the beginning. The real challenge, the true art, was preservation. Everything these people did was tied to this central theme. How do you make the bounty of a successful hunt last through the lean times? How do you store the harvest of the summer to survive the harsh, unforgiving winter? The answers to these questions were the bedrock of their culture, shaping their tools, their traditions, and their very way of life. The hunters are greeted not with loud cheers, but with quiet nods of respect. The community understands the gravity of this moment. The work is about to begin. The fresh meat will be carefully butchered, every part of the animal honored and utilized. Nothing will be wasted. This is a lesson taught from birth, respect for the gift, and the responsibility to preserve it. Let's follow the journey of this food. The prime cuts will be roasted over the fire for the immediate community feast, a celebration of success and a moment of shared gratitude. But the vast majority of the meat is destined for a different fate. It will be sliced into thin strips, the women working together with practiced efficiency, their obsidian blades sharp and precise. These strips will be laid out on wooden racks to dry in the sun and wind. This process, known as jerky making, is one of the oldest and most effective methods of food preservation. By removing the moisture, they halt the growth of bacteria, creating a lightweight, high-protein food source that can last for months, even years. It's the perfect provision for long journeys, or a vital reserve for when fresh game is scarce. But drying is just one technique in their arsenal. Another is smoking. Some of the meat will be hung inside a special lodge, where a slow, smoky fire will cure it over several days. The smoke not only adds a rich, savory flavor, but also contains natural compounds that act as further protecting the meat from This method requires patience and a deep understanding of fire and airflow. And then there is pemmican, the ultimate survival food. The dried meat, the jerky, is pounded into a fine powder. This powder is then mixed with rendered fat, usually from the same animal, creating a nutrient-dense paste. Often, dried berries, like chokecherries or Saskatoon berries, are added for flavor and extra vitamins, packed into rawhide bags. Pemmican is an energy-rich, a compact and durable provision that could sustain a hunting party or a migrating family for an incredible length of time. This focus on preservation extended far beyond meat. As the sun climbs higher, you can see other activities unfolding throughout the camp. Women and children return from gathering, their baskets filled with wild vegetables, roots, and berries. Some of these will be eaten fresh, but most are destined for storage. Roots like prairie turnips are braided into long chains and hung too dry. Berries are mashed and spread onto hides to dry into thin, fruit leather cakes. Even agriculture, practiced by many groups, was centered on preservation. The corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters, were cultivated not just for summer feasts, but for their ability to be dried and stored. Husks of corn would hang from the rafters of lodges. Beans would be shelled and kept in clay pots, and winter squash, with its thick protective rind, could be stored for months in cool, dry pits dug into the earth. Every season had its own preservation tasks, its own rhythms of gathering, preparing, and storing. Spring was for early greens and fish, which could be smoked or dried. Summer was the height of berry picking and vegetable harvesting. Autumn was the time for the great communal hunts and the final push to store grains and roots before the first snow. Winter was the time to live off these stores, a testament to the hard work and foresight of the previous seasons. This knowledge was not written in books. It was a living library, passed down from elder to child through observation, practice, and oral tradition. A grandmother would show her granddaughter exactly how thin to slice the meat for drying. A father would teach his son how to read the winds for the perfect smoking conditions. These were lessons of survival, woven into the fabric of daily life, into stories, songs, and ceremonies. What we are witnessing here, in the quiet dawn of this ancient encampment, is more than just a morning routine. It is a master class in sustainability, a sophisticated system of resource management honed over thousands of years. It's a profound relationship with the environment, built on respect, knowledge, and an unwavering focus on the future. The glowing embers, the returning hunters, the women grinding corn, they are all part of a timeless cycle of provision and preservation, a cycle that ensured the dawn would continue to break over their people for generations to come. Thank you for watching. And if you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I do, please consider subscribing for more stories from our shared history. Have you ever wondered why our ancestors started making jerky? It wasn't just for a tasty snack on a hike. It was a matter of survival. Welcome back to our series on the history of food preservation. Today, we're diving into Chapter 2, Understanding the Need for Preservation. Let's journey back in time, thousands of years ago, to a world where refrigerators and grocery stores were unimaginable. For early human communities, life was a constant dance with nature, a rhythm dictated by the seasons and the unpredictable movements of animal herds. Imagine facing a long, harsh winter. The days grow shorter, the air turns bitingly cold, and the once green landscape is now buried under a thick blanket of snow. For hunting communities, this meant food sources became incredibly scarce. The herds they relied on might migrate south, where the deep snow would make tracking them nearly impossible. A successful hunt was a cause for great celebration, but it also presented a huge problem. An entire mammoth, bison, or a large deer provided a massive amount of meat, far more than a small group could eat before it spoiled. What did they do with the rest? Wasting it wasn't an option. Every single calorie was precious. This is where the genius of preservation comes in. Our ancestors were keen observers of their environment. They likely noticed how a piece of meat left out in the dry, windy air or near a fire would change. It would lose its moisture, become lighter, and, most importantly, it wouldn't rot as quickly. This simple observation was a revolutionary discovery. Through generations of trial and error, they perfected the art of drying meat. This wasn't just a single technique. It was an adaptation to their specific environment. In cold, arid climates, like the Arctic or high-altitude regions, they might have used freeze where the meat was frozen and the ice slowly sublimated, turning directly into vapor. In sunnier, warmer climates, they would cut the meat into thin strips to maximize surface area and hang it on racks in the open air, letting the sun and wind do the work. The addition of smoke from their fires was another game-changer. Smoke not only helped to dehydrate the meat, but also coated it with natural chemicals that acted as antimicrobials and slowing down spoilage even further and adding a distinct, savory flavor that we still love today. The need for preservation wasn't just about surviving winter. Think about the nomadic lifestyles of many early human groups. They were constantly on the move, following animal migrations, or searching for new resources. Carrying a fresh carcass was impractical, heavy, and messy. But dried meat, it was the perfect travel food, lightweight, compact, and packed with protein and energy. It was the original power bar. It could be stored for months, providing a reliable food source during long journeys across vast, unfamiliar territories. It gave them the freedom to explore, to migrate, and to settle in new lands. Seasonal scarcity was another major driver. Even outside of winter, there were times when food was hard to come by. A drought could decimate plant life and drive animals away. A flood could disrupt hunting grounds. The hunt itself was always unpredictable. Days, or even weeks, could pass without a successful kill. Having a stockpile of dried meat meant that the community wouldn't starve during these lean times. It was their insurance policy, a buffer against the uncertainties of life. It provided a stable food supply that allowed populations to grow and communities to become more established. Instead of living hand-to-mouth, day to day, they could plan for the future. This knowledge was passed down through generations. Elders taught the young the proper way to butcher an animal, to get the best cuts for drying. They shared the secrets of how thin to slice the meat, how long to smoke it, and how to store it properly in cool, dry caves or in animal hide pouches to protect it from moisture and pests. This wasn't just a cooking technique, it was a sacred tradition, a body of knowledge that was essential for the survival and prosperity of their people. It was a cornerstone of their culture. The ability to preserve food fundamentally changed human history. It allowed our ancestors to survive the extreme environments of the Ice Age. And the early Holocene, it fueled migrations across continents, from the plains of Africa to the frozen tundra of Siberia, and across the Bering straight into the Americas. Without drying, smoking, and salting, human expansion would have been severely limited. These methods provided the food security needed for communities to not just survive, but to thrive. It freed up time and mental energy from the constant, desperate search for the next meal. This allowed for the development of other skills, like creating more sophisticated tools, making art, and developing complex social structures. When you look at a simple piece of jerky today, you're looking at a direct link to our deep past. You're re-looking at a technology that was as important to our ancestors as the smartphone is to us. It's a testament to human ingenuity, our ability to adapt, and our relentless drive to survive and build a better future. It's more than just food. It's a story of resilience, innovation, and the very foundations of human civilization. Think about it this way. Every major leap in human history has been supported by an innovation in how we get and store energy. The control of fire was one. Agriculture was another, but nestled right in between, and just as crucial, was the mastery of food preservation. It was the bridge that allowed hunter-gatherers to weather the storms of an unpredictable world, to plan ahead, and to build the first stable communities. The security that came from having a stored food supply meant that a failed hunt was unto death sentence. It meant that a mother could be confident she could feed her children through a long winter. It meant that the group could risk a long journey into unknown territory, knowing they had provisions to sustain them. This stability is the bedrock upon which complex societies are built. So, the next time you see dried meat, whether it's biltong, jerky, or prosciutto, take a moment to appreciate the incredible history behind it. It represents a critical chapter in the human story, a time when our ancestors, armed with little more than sharp stones, fire, and their own brilliant minds, figured out how to conquer hunger and tame the uncertainties of their world. They learned to capture the abundance of one season and carry it into the scarcity of the next. And that, in essence, is the story of civilization itself. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's amazing to see how these ancient techniques still resonate with us today. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in our series. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video. Welcome back to our journey into the past. Today, let's talk about the incredible animals that sustained ancient peoples, the lifeblood of the hunt. Imagine a world shaped by ice, where enormous creatures roamed a vast, untamed landscape. This was the age of megafauna. First, the undisputed king, the mammoth. Towering over the plains, A single mammoth was a walking larder, a treasure trove of resources. A successful hunt meant not just food for weeks, but a wealth of materials. Their massive bones could form the framework for shelters. Their thick hides provided unparalleled protection from the brutal cold, and their long, curved tusks were carved into tools, weapons, and art. Bringing down a mammoth was a monumental task, requiring the coordinated effort of an entire community. It was a high-risk, high-reward endeavor that defined the pinnacle of prehistoric hunting. As the great ice sheets retreated and the climate warmed, the world began to change. The mammoths vanished, but a new giant dominated the landscape. The bison, vast, thundering herds, sometimes stretching for miles, became the primary source of life for many cultures across the Great Plains. Hunting bison was a different challenge. It was a game of strategy, using the terrain to their advantage. Hunters would expertly guide herds towards natural traps like cliffs or narrow ravines. The famous bison jumps are a testament to their deep understanding of animal behavior in their environment. A successful jump could yield an enormous amount of meat, far more than the group could eat fresh. This brings us to a crucial skill: preservation. The sheer volume of meat from a mammoth or a large bison kill had to be processed quickly. Butchery was a precise and communal affair. Every part of the animal was used. Meat was cut into thin strips, a process requiring specialized stone tools. These strips were then laid out on racks to dry in the sun and wind, or smoked over a slow fire. This created jerky, a lightweight, protein-rich food that could last for months, sustaining them through lean times and long journeys. Fat was rendered down to make tallow, a high-energy food source, and a base for pemmican when mixed with dried meat and berries. This was the original energy bar, a perfect travel food. But life wasn't only about the giants. In the sprawling forests and woodlands, the deer was a staple. Unlike the herd animals of the plains, deer were solitary and elusive. Hunting them required stealth, patience, and an intimate knowledge of the forest. A lone hunter moving silently through the undergrowth, tracking a single animal for hours, even days. The reward was a leaner meat, prized for its flavor. Deer hides, being softer and more pliable than bison, were perfect for making comfortable clothing, moccasins, and bags. Their antlers were an invaluable resource, shaped into everything from tool handles and fishhooks to intricate ornaments. Across the open country, another creature of incredible speed thrived. The pronghorn, often called the American antelope. The pronghorn is the fastest land animal in the Western Hemisphere. They couldn't be run down. Instead, hunters had to be clever. They might build long, funnel-shaped fences or corrals, sometimes stretching for miles, to guide the curious and fast-moving herds into a trap. This required immense cooperation and planning. The pronghorn offered a delicate, fine-grained meat, and its hide was used for soft, high-quality leather. And let's not forget the smaller game. Rabbits, squirrels, birds, and turtles were a constant and reliable food source, especially when larger hunts failed. They were often trapped or hunted by individuals, including younger members of the community, providing valuable protein and important lessons in tracking and hunting skills. These smaller animals filled the gaps, ensuring that there was always something to eat. Every creature, from the mighty mammoth to the humble rabbit, played a vital role in the intricate web of survival. Now, picture this scene. The sun is low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The air is still, carrying the scent of wood smoke from the camp. In the distance, figures emerge against the horizon. The hunters are returning. They move slowly, deliberately, their shoulders heavy, not just with exhaustion, but with the weight of their prize. Maybe it's a massive haunch of bison slung between two poles, or several deer draped over their backs. As they draw closer, the camp stirs. There are no loud cheers, but a quiet, profound sense of relief and gratitude washes over the community. The hunt was successful. Tonight, there will be fresh meat roasting over the fire, a welcome feast. But the real work is just beginning. By the flickering light of the flames, the entire group comes together. Knives of flint and obsidian are sharpened. The animal is respectfully laid out, and the meticulous process of butchery begins. Children watch, learning the ancient techniques passed down through generations. The air fills with the quiet sounds of slicing, scraping, and the low murmur of conversation as the meat is prepared for drying. This is more than just processing food. It's a ritual, a communal act of survival, a reinforcement of the bonds that hold the group together. It's a slow, atmospheric dance of life, ensuring that the bounty of today will sustain them for the days and weeks to come. The animals of the hunt were not just food. They were the center of the universe for these early peoples. They provided shelter, clothing, tools, and even inspired their art and spirituality. The relationship was one of deep respect, a cycle of life and death that connected humans and animals in a profound, unbreakable bond. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into our ancient world. We'll see you in the next chapter. The sun climbs, its warm light filtering through the leaves, casting dancing shadows on the forest floor. A new day begins in our camp, and with it, a new task. The successful hunt is behind us, the bounty secured. Now, we must prepare. This is a time of quiet industry, of shared purpose, a rhythm of work that has sustained our people for generations. The air is still cool from the night, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine. But soon, it will be filled with the sounds and smells of preparation. All around the central clearing, families are stirring. This space, the heart of our camp, must be made ready. The children, their morning energy boundless, are tasked with the first job. With laughter and playful shoves, they begin to clear the ground. They sweep away fallen leaves and twigs with bundles of branches, their small hands working with surprising efficiency. The soft rustle of their sweeping is the first note in the day's symphony. Older members of the community sit nearby, their eyes watchful, offering gentle guidance. They point to stray stones that need to be moved, or patches of damp ground that need to be covered with fresh, dry earths brought from the riverbank. This isn't just cleaning. It's a ritual, transforming our shared space into a workshop, a sacred area where the gifts of the hunt will be honored and preserved. The ground must be clean, not just for us, but for the meat, to keep it pure. As the clearing takes shape, a different kind of work begins. The men and older boys head into the surrounding woods, their footsteps soft on the mossy ground. Their task is to gather wood, but not just any wood. They search for specific types: hickory, oak, and maple woods that burn slow and steady, producing a fragrant smoke perfect for curing. They look for fallen branches, seasoned by the wind and sun. There's a deep knowledge here, passed down through countless seasons. They know which wood will split easily, which will smolder for hours, and which will impart the best flavor. The sharp crack of a dead branch being broken echoes through the trees, a percussive beat. They work together, calling out to each other when they find a particularly good log. The wood is gathered and carried back to the edge of the camp, where it's piled high. This isn't just fuel, it's a crucial ingredient in the preservation process. Each piece is chosen with care, a testament to our understanding of the forest's gifts. Back in the clearing, another sound joins the chorus, the rhythmic tapping of stone against stone. The tool makers are at work. This is a skill honed over a lifetime, a delicate dance of force and precision. An elder sits cross-legged, a large piece of flint held firmly in one hand. With a smaller, harder stone, he strikes the edge with sharp, controlled blows. With each tap, a thin, razor-sharp flake falls away. His movements are economical, precise, born of thousands of hours of practice. He is not just breaking rock, he is shaping it, coaxing a blade from the heart of the stone. Younger men watch him, learning. They practice on smaller pieces, their taps less certain, their results less refined. But they learn. They learn to feel the stone, to read its lines, and predict how it will break. It's a slow, meditative process, the air filled with the sharp, clean scent of fractured flint. These stone knives, born from the earth, will soon be used to prepare the meat, their keen edges making the difficult work possible. It's not just stone that is being shaped. Others are working with bone, the long, strong bones from previous hunts, cleaned and dried, are now being transformed. Using a rough piece of sandstone, a woman sharpens a needle thin, all made from the leg bone of a deer. The grating sound of bone on stone is soft, yet persistent. These bone tools are just as vital as the stone knives. Awls for piercing hides, smoothers for working leather, and sturdy scrapers for cleaning the skins. Each tool has a purpose, a history. Some have been in the family for years, their surfaces polished smooth by the hands of mothers and grandmothers. There's a quiet pride in this work, in taking a piece of the animal and giving it a new life, a new purpose within the community. Nothing is wasted. Every part of the gift is used, honored. As the morning wears on, the camp becomes a hive of focused activity. The children, their sweeping done, now help to sort the smaller pieces of wood, creating neat piles for the smoking racks. The women lay out clean, woven mats on the cleared ground, creating pristine surfaces for the work to come. The air hums with a quiet energy. It's the sound of a community working in concert, each person contributing their skill, their effort. The tap of the flint napper, the crack of splitting wood, the soft scrape of bone on stone, the rustle of feet on dry earth, it all blends together into a single, harmonious rhythm. This is the music of preparation, a song of sustenance. Look closer at the details. See the concentration on the face of a young boy as he tries to replicate the Elderess technique, his brow furrowed as he carefully strikes a piece of flint. Set the easy, practiced way, a woman tests the edge of a bone scraper with her thumb, her expression satisfied. Notice the piles of wood, sorted by size and type. A testament to the foresight and planning that goes into this process. The sun is higher now, its warmth soaking into the ground. The initial coolness of the morning has given way to a comfortable heat. The scents have changed, too. The smell of fractured stone now mingles with the dry, woody aroma of the gathered firewood. This preparation is more than just a series of tasks. It is a shared act of responsibility, a collective effort to ensure the well-being of the entire group. It strengthens the bonds between us. A father shows his son how to select the best wood for a slow fire. A grandmother passes down her knowledge of tool sharpening to her granddaughter. Stories are shared over the work. Quiet jokes are exchanged. It's in these moments, these shared acts of labor and learning, that the fabric of our community is woven tighter. We are connected to the past through the skills we use, and we are connected to the future by passing those skills on to the next generation. The camp is ready. The ground is clean, the wood is gathered, and the tools are sharp. The stage is set. A sense of anticipation hangs in the air, a quiet excitement for the next phase of the work. The sun has reached its zenith, and the time for preparation is drawing to a close. Soon, the real work of butchering and preserving will begin. But this foundation, laid with care and skill, is essential. Without the clean ground, the right wood, and the sharp tools, all would be for nothing. This is the unseen, unheard part of the story, the quiet prelude to the feast. It's the rhythm of our lives, the steady, reliable beat that ensures our survival, our prosperity. And as the sounds of preparation slowly fade, a new silence settles over the campus, silence of readiness, of purpose, of a community poised and prepared for the task ahead. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Be sure to follow along for the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey into the wild. Today, in Chapter 6, we're diving deep into an essential skill, crafting wooden drying racks. Whether you're preserving meat, fish, herbs, or hides, a well-built rack is your best friend. It's all about using what nature provides to create something truly functional. So, let's get our hands dirty and build some racks. The first step, and it's a crucial one, is selecting the right wood. You're looking for long, straight, and strong branches. Green wood, or freshly cut wood, is ideal because it's flexible and easier to work with. Hardwoods like maple, oak, or hickory are fantastic if you can find them. But honestly, most sturdy saplings will do the job. Look for pieces that are relatively uniform in thickness, maybe about an inch or two in diameter. This consistency will make your final structure much more stable. Avoid dead, brittle wood. It might seem convenient, but it will snap under tension or weight, and all your hard work will be for nothing. Once you've gathered a good bundle of branches, it's time to prepare them. Now, we need to strip the bark. This isn't just for looks, it's a vital step. Bark can trap moisture, which can lead to mold and rot, and it can also attract insects that you definitely don't want near your food. The easiest way to strip bark is with a knife. Hold the branch firmly and use the back of your blade, or a dedicated bark scraper if you have one, to peel it away. Push the blade away from your body in long, smooth strokes. You'll see the clean, pale wood emerge from underneath if you're working with very fresh wood. Sometimes you can even peel large sections off by hand after making an initial cut. Take your time with this process. A clean, smooth surface is what you're aiming for. It also prevents any unwanted flavors from the bark from transferring to your food. With our poles prepped and smooth, the next stage is creating our cordage for lashing everything together. If you have sinew, fantastic. It's incredibly strong when it dries. But let's assume we're working entirely from the landscape. We can make strong cordage from plant fibers. Things like nettle, milkweed, or the inner bark of certain trees, like cedar or basswood, are excellent choices. You'll need to process these fibers, often by soaking and then twisting them together into a sturdy cord. This is a skill in itself, and it's worth practicing. The technique is called reverse wrapping, where you twist two bundles of fibers and then wrap them around each other in the opposite direction. This creates a surprisingly strong and reliable rope for our racks. We'll need quite a bit of it, so it's a good idea to make a whole bundle before you start building. Alright, we have our poles and our cordage. Let's build our first rack, the horizontal platform. This is the simplest and most versatile design. It's basically a low table. Start by driving for sturdy, forked posts into the ground to form a rectangle. These will be the legs of your platform. Make sure they're level and firmly set. Next, lay two long, strong poles across the forks on the longer sides of the rectangle. These are your main support beams. Now, lay a series of thinner poles across these two beams, spacing them a few inches apart. This creates the greater platform surface where you'll place your items to dry. To secure everything, we'll use our plant fiber cordaje. Use a technique called square lashing. Wrap the rope around the two intersecting poles in a diagonal pattern, pulling it tight with each wrap. Finish with a few frapping turns between the poles to really cinch it down, and tie it off with a secure knot. Lash every single intersection for maximum stability. This simple, flat rack is perfect for drying large quantities of meat strips, fish fillets, or edible plants. Now, let's look at a different design. The tall standing grid. This one is great if you have limited ground space or want to catch more wind. It's essentially a vertical A-frame structure. You'll start by creating two large A-frames. For each one, take two long poles and lash them together near the top, leaving the bottoms spread apart. Then, lash a horizontal cross brace, about a third of the way up from the bottom to stabilize the A shape. Now, stand your two A-frames up, parallel to each other a few feet apart. Connect them at the top by laying a long ridge pole across the V-notch where the poles meet. Secure this ridge pole with more lashing. Then, connect the horizontal cross braces of the two A-frames with more poles. You've now created a stable, three-dimensional frame. The final step is to run your cordage back and forth between the horizontal cross braces, creating a net or grid. You can hang strips of meat or fish directly over these cords. This design allows for excellent airflow all around the food, speeding up the drying process. Finally, let's talk about the angled sun rack. This design is specifically for maximizing solar radiation. It's brilliant for places with lots of sun, but maybe not a lot of wind. Think of it as a natural dehydrator. You'll build a simple rectangular frame on the ground first. Lash 4 poles together to create the base. Then, you'll create a second, identical rectangular frame. This will be the drying surface. On this second frame, lash a grid of thinner sticks or a net of cordage across it. Now, you need to prop this drying frame up at an angle, facing the sun. You can do this by creating two support legs. Lash them to the back corners of the frame and stake them into the ground. The ideal angle is one that's perpendicular to the sun's rays at midday. This concentrates the heat and light directly onto your food. You can even place a reflective surface underneath, like light-colored rocks or bark, to bounce more heat up onto the underside of the food. This is an incredibly efficient way to dry fruits, vegetables, and thin cuts of meat very quickly. So there you have it, 3 different types of drying racks, each with its own advantages, all built from natural materials. The horizontal platform for bulk drying, the tall grid for saving space and catching wind, and the angled rack for harnessing the power of the sun. The key to all of them is careful material selection, proper preparation, and strong, tight lashings. Mastering this skill opens up a world of food preservation possibilities in the wild. It's about more than just survival. It's about thriving and making the most of nature's bounty. Thanks for joining me today. Give these a try on your next adventure, and let me know how it goes. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more wilderness skills. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey into the past, where we uncovered the ingenious ways our ancestors lived and survived. Today, we're diving into Chapter 7, Fire and Smoke as Silent Protectors. When you picture fire and food, you probably think of cooking, right? A sizzling steak, a roasted vegetable. But for many ancient cultures, especially those preserving food for the long haul, fire played a very different, much subtler role. The goal wasn't to cook the food with intense heat, but to harness the power of its byproduct, smoke. Imagine stepping into a traditional smokehouse, or just a designated corner of a dwelling. The air is thick, not with the smell of a barbecue, but with something more primal, more earthy. It's the scent of slowly smoldering hardwood hickory, alder, or oak releasing its very essence into the air. It's a dry, pungent aroma that gets into your clothes, into your hair, a constant reminder of the slow, patient work being done. This wasn't a roaring blaze. It was a carefully managed, low-temperature fire, often little more than a bed of glowing embers. The key was to produce a steady, dense stream of smoke, not a lot of heat. Now, let's look up. Suspended high above these smoldering embers are racks laden with the community's precious food stores. Long strips of meat, whole fish split open, and perhaps even fruits and cheeses, all hanging in the smoky haze. The smoke wasn't cooking them, it was bathing them. Watch as the gray wisps rise, slow and deliberate. Like ethereal spirits, they curl and twist, clinging to the surfaces of the food, enveloping each piece in a protective embrace. It's a mesmerizing, almost meditative sight. A family member would be tasked with tending this fire, ensuring it never got too hot, never went out. It was a job that required patience and understanding, a gentle art passed down through generations. For hours, sometimes days, this little fire would burn, its smoke working its silent magic. So, what was this magic exactly? It served 2 critical purposes. First, and perhaps most importantly, the smoke was a powerful insect repellent. In a world without refrigerators or plastic wrap, flies, beetles, and other pests were a constant threat, ready to lay their eggs and spoil a hard-won food supply. The compounds in the wood smoke, like phenols and other chemicals, created an environment that was incredibly hostile to these insects. The pungent aroma that we might find appealing was a giant keep-out Siegen 4 team. It was a natural, effective form of pest control, ensuring the food remained safe and uncontaminated. The second purpose was an added layer of preservation. The smoke's chemical compounds acted as antioxidants and antimicrobials. As the smoke settled onto the surface of the meat or fish, it created a thin, dry layer called a pellicle. This pellicle not only sealed the surface, preventing harmful bacteria from growing, but the smoke compounds themselves actively inhibited the growth of mold and spoilage causing microbes. It was like giving the food an invisible, protective shield. This process also gently dehydrated the surface, drawing out moisture which is essential for bacterial life. So, while the main preservation method might still be drying or salting, smoking was the indispensable partner that made it all the more effective. It's fascinating to think about this duality. The same element, fire, that could provide immediate warmth in a cooked meal, could also be tamed to offer long-term security. The smoke wasn't about the instant gratification of a hot meal. It was about forethought, planning, and survival. It was about ensuring that the successful hunt or the bountiful catch would feed the family not just for a day, but for the weeks and months to come. through lean seasons and harsh winters. The process also imparted a unique flavor, which we've come to love and replicate today. But for our ancestors, that smoky taste was secondary. It was the taste of security. It was the flavor of food that wouldn't spoil, food that was safe from pests, food that would be there when they needed it most. Each bite of smoked fish or cured meat was a taste of their own ingenuity and their deep connection with the natural world. They didn't just see a tree, they saw potential fuel for a fire that could protect their future. So, the next time you enjoy a piece of smoked salmon or some smoky bacon, take a moment to appreciate the ancient wisdom behind it. Think of those small, tended fires, the slow curl of gray wisps, and the silent, smoky protectors that helped our ancestors thrive. It's a testament to human innovation and the timeless power of fire and smoke. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the past. It's incredible what we can learn from these ancient techniques. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. See you next time. The fire crackled softly, a warm heart at the center of the camp. As the last rays of sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, the work of the day began to wind down. But for the little ones, a new kind of learning was just beginning. By the hearths, children watched with wide, curious eyes as their mothers prepared the evening meal. The air was filled with the scent of roasting meat and the low hum of conversation. A small boy, no older than 5, toddled over to the woodpile. His brow was furrowed in concentration as he mimicked his father, gathering a few small twigs in his chubby arms. The bundle was tiny, barely a handful, but he carried it with immense pride, his small legs wobbling under the imaginary weight. He presented his collection to his mother, who smiled and ruffled his hair, adding his contribution to the fire with a flourish that made his chest puff out. Aod Elped. He was part of it. Nearby, a little girl with a smudge of soot on her nose sat beside her mother, who was skillfully scraping a hide with a sharp bone knife. The girl held a smaller, blunted piece of bone, her own practice tool. She wasn't actually working the hide, but she scraped it against a soft piece of bark, her movements a mirror of her mother's. She'd press down, then lift, her tongue sticking out in focus. Sometimes her mother would pause, gently guiding her daughter's hand, showing her the right angle, the right pressure. It was a silent lesson, passed down through touch and observation, a dance of hands that had been repeated for generations. Another child, a girl with bright, inquisitive eyes, had a different job. The smoke from the cooking fire was thick, and she held a large, stiff leaf, waving it back and forth to fan the smoke away from her mother's face. She would wave it with great energy, her whole body swaying with the effort, a look of serious responsibility on her face. Then, she'd giggle as a puff of smoke swirled around her, making her cough and laugh at the same time. Her mother would laugh with her, a warm, genuine sound that echoed through the camp. These weren't chores, they were games, woven into the fabric of their daily lives. Under the watchful eyes of the elders, who sat wrapped in warm furs, the children played their parts. One might be tasked with handing over a specific tool, a moment of great importance. The small scraper, little one, a mother would say, and the child would rummage through the tool pouch, their small fingers carefully identifying the right piece of flint or bone. The praise they received for a task done correctly was a reward more valuable than any toy. As the meat sizzled, a few children gathered a little way off, their own small fire pit, a miniature version of the adults. They didn't have real fire, of course, just a circle of stones with a pile of leaves in the middle. They cooked mud pies on flat rocks, chattering to each other in a serious imitation of their parents. "This one needs more heat," one would say, earnestly fanning the imaginary flames. "Pass me the sharp stone," another would demand, using a twig to carve a piece of bark. They were learning the rhythms of life, the cooperation, the language of the hearth. Even the very youngest were involved. A mother with a baby, nestled in a sling on her back, would murmur to the infant, explaining what she was doing. "See, we stir the stew like this. Round and round," she'd whisper, her movements gentle and rhythmic. The baby, lulled by the motion and the soft voice, was absorbing the sounds, the smells, the feeling of belonging. They were learning before they could even walk, soaking in the knowledge of their people like the earth soaks in the rain. The light faded completely, and the stars began to appear, pinpricks of silver in the deep blue velvet of the night sky. The children, their small bodies tired from a day of play and work, began to drift closer to the warmth of their families. The little boy who had carried the twigs was now curled up by his father's side, his head resting on his father's leg, his eyes half closed. He watched the flames dance, the shadows they cast on the walls of the shelter like moving pictures, telling stories without words. The girl who had practiced scraping was now being told a story by her grandmother, her head in the old woman's lap. The grandmother's voice was a low, soothing melody, telling tales of the great hunt, of the spirits of the forest, of how the first fire was brought to their people. The girl's practiced bone knife lay forgotten beside her, her hands now still. Her mind was filled with images of mammoths and heroes, her imagination soaring on the wings of her grandmother's words. The camp grew quieter. The clatter of tools and the chatter of voices gave way to the gentle crackle of the fire and the soft breathing of those who were drifting off to sleep. The children, wrapped in soft furs, were the first to succumb. Their dreams were likely filled with the day's activities. The pride of carrying wood, the focus of scraping bark, the fun of fanning smoke. They were learning not through lessons and lectures, but through love, through play, through being an essential part of the family circle. In this peaceful, glowing twilight, the future of the clan was being nurtured. In these small, helpy hands, in these white, watching eyes, the skills and stories of their ancestors were being carefully passed on. The fire, the heart of their home, cast a warm, protective light over them all, a silent guardian watching over the sleeping children as they learned, even in their dreams. The quiet of the night settled over the camp, a soft blanket of peace, promising a new day of learning and laughter to come. Good night. Sleep well. The hunt is over. The work of butchering is done. Now, another kind of vigilance begins. Here, under the vast, open sky, our winter's survival hangs, quite literally, on these racks. Strips of precious meat, salted and seasoned, slowly curing in the wind. But we are not the only ones who see this bounty. In the rustling grasses and the distant hills, hungry eyes are watching. And so, we watch back. This is the duty of the Meat Watch. It's a task that falls to everyone, a silent, shared responsibility that binds the families together. From the steady hands of the elders to the keen eyes of the youth, we all take our turn. As one watch ends and another begins, there's a quiet exchange or nod, a shared glance that says, all is well. Your turn now. When it's my time, I wrap myself in thick, heavy hides, the familiar scent of wood smoke and leather, a comforting presence in the chill air. The cold seeps in slowly, a persistent guest, but the furs are a fortress against it. Primera find my spot, a familiar stone worn, smoothed by the generations of watchers before me. From here, I can see it all. The rows of drying meat, the edge of the woods, the rolling plains disappearing into the horizon. The first few moments are about settling in, letting the sounds of the camp fade into the background. The laughter, the crackle of the central fire, the low murmur of conversation, they'll soften, becoming a distant hum. My world shrinks to this small, vital space. My senses, which were dulled by the day's labor, now sharpened to a razor's edge. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in strokes of orange, pink, and deep violet. This is the time of long shadows. A familiar rock can twist into the shape of a crouching predator. A clump of sagebrush can look like a fox, frozen in mid-stride. My heart gives a little jump, a familiar jolt, but my eyes know how to tell the difference. I've learned to trust what I see, not what my tired mind imagines. I watch the shadows stretch and merge, flowing like dark water across the land, until they are swallowed by the approaching twilight. As darkness deepens, my ears take over. The world becomes a symphony of subtle sounds. The wind is the main conductor. It whispers through the tall grasses, a constant, sighing presence. It hums, a low mournful tune, as it passes through the wooden racks themselves, making the strips of meat dance and sway like strange, silent chimes. I learned its language, the gentle rustle, that means nothing, and the sudden, sharp swish, that means something is moving. I hear the distant call of a night bird, a lonely, piercing cry that echoes across the valley. I hear the scuttling of some small, unseen creature in the undergrowth nearby, a mouse, perhaps, or a vole. These are the normal sounds, the heartbeat of the night. My mind catalogs them, dismisses them. I am listening for the abnormal, the out of place, the snap of a twig that is too heavy for a rabbit, the low, guttural growl that is not the wind. The moon rises, a sliver of silver in the inky blackness, casting a pale, ghostly light over the landscape. Now, the world is a study in shades of gray and black. The meat on the racks looks almost spectral, glowing faintly in the moonlight. This is a time of high alert. The wolves are boldest under the moon. Their pack dynamics, their intelligence, it's something we respect and something we must guard against. I remember a story an elder told me of a night just like this. He was young, on his first watch. He heard a sound, a soft padding, and saw a pair of yellow eyes glowing just at the edge of the shadows. A lone wolf, clever and daring. He didn't shout. He didn't move. He just slowly stood up, making himself seem larger in the moonlight. He held the wolf's gaze, a silent battle of wills. After a long moment, the wolf turned and melted back into the night. It was a test, and he had passed. These stories run through my mind as I sit here. They are part of the watch. They are lessons, reminders of what is at stake. The meat hanging on these racks is more than just food. It's the promise of warmth in the deep winter. It's the strength our children will need to grow. It's the story of our survival, written in sinew and muscle. Hours pass. The cold becomes a dull ache in my bones. My eyes burn from staring into the darkness. It's a strange state of being utterly still on the outside, but intensely alive on the inside. Every nerve is firing. It's a form of meditation, a deep connection to the land and the cycle of life and death that plays out upon it every single night. I am not just a guard. I am a part of this landscape, as much as the stone I sit on and the wind that blows around me. I think about the animals. The fox, with its cunning intelligence. The scavenger birds, the crows and magpies, who will arrive with the first light of dawn, hoping for a forgotten scrap. And the wolves, the great shadows of the plains. We are not enemies. We are competitors, sharing this land, both driven by the same fundamental need to feed our families and survive. In Tisbihil, there is a deep, unspoken respect for them. They are smart, and so we must be smarter. They are patient, and so we must be more patient. Then, a subtle shift in the air. The deep, velvet black of the sky begins to soften at the eastern edge. A faint, almost imperceptible line of pale gray appears. Dawn is coming. The birds of the night fall silent, and a new chorus begins to stir. This is the most dangerous time for a different kind of threat. The birds, as the light grows, they will call me. I stay focused. The temptation to relax is strong, but the watch isn't over until the sun is fully up, and my replacement has arrived. The first rays of sunlight finally break over the horizon, hitting the highest peaks and spilling golden light down into our valley. The world comes alive with color again. The meat racks, which looked so ghostly in the moonlight, now glow with a rich, deep red in the morning sun. And then I hear the soft crunch of footsteps behind me. I don't need to turn. I know the sound. It's the next watcher, coming to relieve me. They carry a warm skin of herb tea, a small gift for the end of my vigil. I take it, the warmth seeping into my cold hands. We exchange a few quiet words. Any trouble? They asked. All quiet, I reply. Just the wind and the stars. I stand up, my muscles stiff and protesting. I stretch, feeling the blood return to my limbs. I take one last look at the drying meat, safe and sound for another night. My duty is done. As I walk back toward the warmth and light of the main camp, the smell of breakfast fire and the sound of my family stirring, a sense of profound peace settles over me. We are safe. For one more day, we have provided. We have watched over our future. And tonight, another will take my place on the stone, wrapped in hides, listening to the wind. Welcome back to our journey. Today, We delve into Chapter 11. Weather challenges. In a world before forecasts and apps, survival and success depended on an intimate, almost spiritual connection with the sky. Every day was a gamble, a constant dance with the elements. Imagine a perfect morning. The sun is warm, a gentle breeze rustles the leaves, and everything is laid out, too dry, soaking in the golden rays. But then, a subtle shift, a change in the air's scent, a different feel to the wind. Far on the horizon, a line of dark clouds begins to gather, a bruise on the blue canvas of the sky. This is the first sign, the whispered warning that a storm is brewing. Experienced eyes would scan the heavens, not just seeing clouds, but reading them. Are they the puffy, harmless, cumulus clouds of a fair day? Or are they darkening, flattening, transforming into the ominous anvils of a cumulonimbus? The speed at which they move, their color, their shape, each detail tells a story of what's to come. A sudden stillness, an AD quiet, might precede a downpour. The birds might fall silent, sensing the drop in atmospheric pressure. Then comes the rain. It starts as a few tentative drops, dotting the dust, before unleashing its full force. A frantic rush ensues. Everything must be brought under cover immediately. What was just moments ago a scene of peaceful work becomes a race against time, a desperate effort to save the fruits of their labor from the deluge. The sound of rain drumming on the roof is both a comfort and a source of anxiety. Will it be a quick shower or a prolonged storm that could lead to dampness and ruin? But the rain isn't the only adversary. The wind is a fickle and powerful force. One moment, it's a helpful partner, hastening the drying process. The next, it's a violent thief, a sudden, powerful gust, capable of snatching things away, sending them tumbling across the fields. You'd see people weighing down corners, creating windbreaks, constantly adjusting to the wind's changing moods. They learned to recognize the whistle of a rising gale, the telltale sign that they needed to secure everything, and fast. The direction of the wind also held clues. A wind from the north might bring cold, dry air, while a southerly wind could carry moisture and the promise of rain. And then there's the sun itself, a double-edged sword. A relentless heat wave can be just as challenging as a storm. Under the blaze of a midday sun, the heat can be scorching, almost brutal. The air becomes thick and heavy, shimmering over the hot ground. While it accelerates drying, too much direct, harsh sunlight can be damaging. It can bleach colors, make materials brittle, or scorch delicate items. People would learn the sun's path across the sky, knowing the exact hours of its most intense heat. They would use this knowledge to their advantage, perhaps exposing things to the gentle morning sun and then moving them to the shade during the peak afternoon hours. Humidity was the invisible enemy. On a hot, sticky day, even with a strong sun, nothing seems to dry. The air is already saturated with moisture, refusing to absorb any more. It's a frustrating, slow-motion battle. You could feel it on your skin, the dampness that clings to everything. On days like these, patience was the key, spacing items further apart to improve airflow. Turning them more frequently, these small adjustments were crucial. An experienced hand could feel the moisture in the air, a skill honed over countless seasons of observation. Conversely, the cool of the night brought its own set of challenges. As temperatures drop, dew forms, blanketing everything in a layer of moisture. Anything left out overnight would be wetter in the morning than it was the evening before. So, as dusk approached, another flurry of activity would begin. Everything had to be gathered and brought indoors or under shelter, safe from the nightly dew. This daily rhythm of bringing things out at dawn and taking them in at dusk was a fundamental part of life, dictated entirely by the sky. This profound understanding wasn't learned from books. It was a living knowledge, passed down through generations. It was written in the ache of a grandparent's joints before a storm in the folklore that tied the behavior of animals to the coming weather, and in the deep lines etched on a farmer-esque face from years of squinting at the sun and sky. They were meteorologists of the most practical kind, reading the wind's direction, feeling the humidity on their skin, interpreting the language of the clouds. These were not just skills, they were instincts. It was a testament to human resilience and our incredible ability to adapt, to live in harmony with the powerful, unpredictable, and often challenging forces of nature. This constant negotiation with the weather shaped their days, their work, and their very way of life. Thanks for joining us for this chapter. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss what is coming next. We'll see you in the next one. Welcome back to our series, where we explore the ancient skills that shaped human history. Today, we're diving into Chapter 12. Community collaboration. We often think of survival skills as individual pursuits, one person against the wilderness. But the truth is, our greatest strength has always been our ability to work together. And nowhere is this more evident than in the age-old practice of preserving meat. Let's paint a picture. Imagine a successful hunt. The bounty is huge, far more than one person or even a small family could process alone before it spoils. This is where the community comes alive. Drying meat was never a solitary job. It was a bustling, all-hands-on-deck event that brought the entire camp together. The process transformed the center of the encampment into a hub of purposeful activity, while a core group of experienced adults would take on the crucial task of butchering the animals and preparing the meat. Every single person had a role to play. Think of it like a well-oiled machine. The primary processors would skillfully slice the meat into thin, uniform strips. This was a task that required precision and knowledge. Too thick, and the meat wouldn't dry properly. Too thin, and it might crumble. This knowledge was passed down through generations, a vital part of the group's collective wisdom. But what about everyone else? Their jobs were just as critical to the success of the operation. One group would be responsible for constructing and maintaining the drying racks. These weren't just simple frames. They had to be sturdy enough to hold hundreds of pounds of meat and positioned perfectly to catch the sun and wind, or to be effectively smoked over a fire. This involved gathering the right wood, lashing it together securely, and making constant adjustments. Then there was the fuel. Drying meat over a low, smoky fire was a common method, as the smoke acts as a natural preservative and insect repellent. This required a constant, reliable supply of the right kind of wood. Not just any wood would do. Certain woods produce a better flavor and a cleaner smoke. So, teams of people, often younger members of the community, would be tasked with foraging for and hauling back large quantities of this specific fuel. It was a physically demanding job that was essential for keeping the fires smoldering for days, or even weeks. Simultaneously, another group would be in charge of water. Processing meat is a messy business, and cleanliness is key to preventing contamination. People needed to wash their hands, their tools, and the meat itself. This meant a continuous train of individuals fetching water from the nearest river or spring, often carrying it in vessels made from animal hides or clay. It was a repetitive but vital task that ensured the health and safety of the entire community and the quality of their food supply. While all this was happening, life didn't just stop. Daily chores still needed to be done, so you'd see others mending clothing, repairing shelters that might have been damaged, or tending to the very young and the elderly. Children would have their own important jobs, too. They might be tasked with keeping birds and pests away from the drying meat. A game of vigilance that taught them responsibility from a young age. They'd watch the adults, learning the skills they would one day need to lead the process themselves. This division of labor was incredibly efficient. It ensured that every necessary task was completed without overwhelming any single individual. The drying racks became the social and economic heart of the camp. It was here that stories were told, lessons were taught, and bonds were strengthened. The air would be filled with the sounds of work, conversation, and laughter. The scent of wood smoke and drying meat was the smell of security, of a future provided for. The success of the meat preservation process directly translated to the survival of the group through lean times. This shared effort created a powerful sense of interdependence. Everyone knew that their contribution, no matter how small it seemed, was crucial to the well-being of the whole. If the wood gatherers failed, the fires would die. If the water carriers stopped, the processing would halt. Everyone relied on everyone else. This collaborative spirit wasn't just about efficiency. It was about social cohesion. Working together towards a common, vital goal reinforced their identity as a community. It celebrated their collective success and deepened their relationships. The preserved meat wasn't just food. It was a tangible symbol of their unity and resilience. It represented the trust they had in one another and the strength they found in their numbers. So, when we look at a piece of jerky or biltong today, it's worth remembering its origins. It's not just a snack. It's the legacy of a deeply communal practice. It tells a story of cooperation, of shared knowledge, and of a time when the survival of the individual was inseparable from the strength of the community. It's a powerful reminder that we are, and have always been, stronger together. Thanks for joining me on this journey into our past. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next chapter. See you next time. Ever wondered how our ancestors survived the harsh winters or long, lean seasons? It wasn't just about practical skills. It was deeply intertwined with culture, spirituality, and a profound respect for nature. Today, we're journeying back in time to explore the sacred rituals and beliefs surrounding food preservation. This isn't just about drying meat or salting fish. It's about a conversation with the universe. For many ancient tribes and indigenous groups, the ability to preserve food wasn't a scientific discovery, but a divine gift. They believed it was knowledge passed down from the spirits of their ancestors, or a blessing from the gods of the hunt and harvest. This belief wasn't just a quaint idea. It shaped their entire approach to life and survival. Every step of the preservation process, from the hunt to the final stored product, was infused with a sense of the sacred. Imagine a hunting party returning to their village, successful after days of tracking. The air isn't just filled with a sense of relief, but with reverence. Before any of the meat is prepared for the tribe, a special ritual takes place. The leader, or perhaps the elder shaman, would take the very first, choicest strip of meat. Instead of eating it, they would offer it to the fire. The fire was seen as a portal, a direct line to the spirit world. As the meat sizzled and the smoke curled upwards, it was a tangible thank you, a message of gratitude sent to the spirit of the animal that gave its life, and to the guardian spirit Seleuks, who guided the hunter's arrows. This act wasn't about waste. It was about cosmic balance. They believed that by giving back, they ensured future abundance. It was a promise. We honor your gift, and we ask for your continued blessing. This reverence extended beyond a single offering. The entire process was a moving meditation, while women and men worked by side, slicing meat, rubbing it with salt and herbs, or hanging it to dry in the wind and sun. There was often a soft, rhythmic sound in the air. It might be a low hum, a hintless song, or a whispered prayer. These weren't just tunes to pass the time. They were songs of gratitude, of respect for the animal, and of hope for the coming seasons. Each note was a thread weaving the community together, connecting them to their work, to each other, and to the world around them. They believed their positive energy, their respect, and their gratitude were literally infused into the food. This meant that when they ate that preserved meat months later, in the dead of winter, they weren't just consuming calories. They were consuming strength, hope, and the blessings of a successful hunt. This sacred connection wasn't limited to meat. When a harvest of berries was brought in, the first and most perfect berries might be left at the base of a sacred tree or placed on a stone altar as an offering to the Earth Mother who provided them. When fish were caught and laid out to be salted and dried, a prayer of thanks would be offered to the river spirit. Each act of preservation was a reaffirmation of their place in the great web of life. They weren't just taking from nature. They were participating in a cycle of giving and receiving. They understood that the deer, the bison, the salmon, the berries were all relatives, not just resources. This mindset fostered a deep sustainability that we are only now beginning to reappreciate. Think about the psychological impact of these rituals. In a world either of uncertainty, where a bad hunt or a failed crop could mean starvation, these spiritual practices provided a powerful sense of control and comfort. They weren't just passively hoping for the best. They were actively engaging with the spiritual forces they believed governed their world. Singing to the meat as it dried wasn't just a tradition. It was an act of imbuing the food with love and positive intentions. Offering the first piece to the fire wasn't just a sacrifice. It was a way of reinforcing the bond between the human and spirit worlds, ensuring that the spirits would continue to provide. It transformed a chore of survival into a meaningful, communal, and spiritual act. It strengthened social bonds, passed down values from one generation to the next, and provided a powerful antidote to fear and despair. This perspective is a world away from our modern experience. We go to a supermarket and grab a vacuum-sealed package of beef jerky or a can of fish off the shelf. We rarely, if ever, Think about the animal, the land, or the people involved in its journey to us. The connection is broken. For our ancestors, that connection was everything. The food they preserved was more than just sustenance. It was a story of the hunt, of the seasons, of the spirits, and of the tribe's enduring relationship with the world. Each bite was a reminder of their dependence on nature and their gratitude for its gifts. By studying these ancient practices, we gain more than just historical knowledge. We get a glimpse into a more holistic way of living, where the physical and the spiritual are not separate, but are two sides of the same coin. It reminds us that food is not just fuel, but a sacred gift that connects us to the earth, to our history, and to each other. The soft songs sung over drying meat and the smoke of the first offering curling into the sky carry a lesson for us today. Gratitude and respect are the most powerful preservatives of all. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found this fascinating, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of our next exploration into the past. Chapter 14. From fresh meat to dry provisions. The journey from a fresh harvest to preserved sustenance is a lesson in patience, a dance with time and the elements. It all begins with the raw material, vibrant red meat, soft and yielding to the touch. This is the starting point, full of life and potential, but also vulnerability. Left to its own devices, it would quickly spoil, but we have a different plan for it. The first step is preparation. We slice the meat carefully, following the grain. Each strip must be just the right thickness. Too thin, and it will become brittle. Too thick, and it won't dry properly from the inside out. It's a precise art, learned through practice. Once sliced, we lay the strips out, ready for the slow transformation. Some traditions call for a salt cure, a brine, or a mix of spices, each adding its own character and aiding in the preservation. For this, we'll rely on the purest elements: smoke and air. The strips are hung, one by one, over a low, smoldering fire. This isn't a roaring blaze for cooking. It's a gentle, persistent heat source. The smoke is key. We choose our wood with Kerry applewood mesquite, imparting a distinct, aromatic flavor. The smoke billows up, not hot enough to cook the meat, but warm enough to begin the drying process and create a protective layer against insects and bacteria. The air, cool and dry, does the rest of the work, slowly wicking away the moisture. And now, the waiting begins. This is where patience becomes the most crucial ingredient. Day 1, the meat is still mostly red, still soft. It's just beginning to change. You can see the surfaces starting to darken slightly, taking on a deeper, richer hue from the smoke. The air is filled with a promising, savory aroma. It's tempting to rush to stoke the fire, but we recede. Slow is the only way. By the second day, the transformation is more apparent. The vibrant red has receded, replaced by a deep, brownish purple. The edges of the strips have started to curl and firm up. If you touch one, it no longer feels soft and pliable. It has a new toughness, a resilience it didn't possess before. The fire crackles softly below, a constant, comforting soundtrack to this patient work. We check the fire constantly, adding a log here, adjusting the airflow there, ensuring it remains a gentle smolder, never a flame. Day 3, and the change is dramatic. The meat has shrunk considerably as the water has evaporated. It's now a dark, almost black color. It looks tough, unyielding. The frequent inspections become more critical now. We take a piece down and bend it. Does it snap? Not yet. It bends, but with a lot of resistance. This is the test for dryness. If it's still too flexible, it needs more time. If it snaps too easily, we've gone too far. We are looking for that perfect point in between a firm bend, with tiny white fibers just starting to show, indicating it's dry but not brittle. The smell has also evolved. It's no longer just the scent of smoke and raw meat. It's a complex, concentrated aroma. It smells of preservation, of sustenance, of foresight. It's the smell of jerky, of biltong, of pemmican, in the making. It's the scent of survival. We continue this process for several more days. The duration depends entirely on the thickness of the meat, the humidity in the air, and the consistency of our fire. Each morning, we inspect our hanging provisions. Each evening, we test a piece. The crackling of the fire becomes the rhythm of our days. It's a slow, methodical process that connects us to generations past, to a time when this skill was not a hobby, but a necessity for surviving long winters or arduous journeys. Finally, the day comes. We take a strip down and bend it. It gives a stiff, clean break. It's done. The one soft meat is now hard, dry, and lightweight. It's transformed from a perishable food into a durable provision that can last for months. We gather the finished pieces, their dark, wrinkled surfaces, a testament to the long days of waiting and watching. This process is more than just a method of food preservation. It's a meditation. It teaches you to observe, to be patient, and to work in harmony with the natural elements of fire, air, and time. From a pound of fresh meat, we are left with only a few ounces of dry provisions. But what we have gained is immeasurable, a nutrient-dense food that will sustain us, a connection to ancient skills, and a deep appreciation for the slow, quiet magic of transformation. This is the essence of turning fresh meat into dry provincianza. Craft of patience. A story of survival. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to follow along with our next chapter. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ingenious survival techniques of our ancestors. Today, in Chapter 15, we're diving deep into the art of creating pemmican and other long-lasting storage foods. Imagine needing to preserve your hunt for months, or even years, without a freezer. How was it done? Let's explore the incredible methods they developed. The foundation of many preserved foods was, of course, the meat itself. After a successful hunt, every usable part of the animal was processed. The prime cuts were often enjoyed fresh, but the majority was destined for long-term storage. The most common preservation method was drying. Thin strips of meat, from animals like bison, deer, or elk, were hung on wooden racks. These racks were placed in the sun and wind, or sometimes over a low, smoky fire. The smoke not only helped to dry the meat, but also added flavor and acted as a natural insect repellent. This process could take several days, and the result was a tough, lightweight, and nutrient-dense jerky. This jerky was a reliable food source on its own, perfect for travelers to chew on for a quick energy boost. But this was just the first step in creating an even more remarkable survival food. The true masterpiece of food preservation from this era is pemmican. If you think of it as the original energy bar, you're on the right track. But it is a sumish, Mori. The creation of pemmican was a brilliant process that combined protein, fat, and vitamins into a compact, durable food source that could last for years. Months, but years. The process started with the dried meat we just talked about. This jerky was placed on a hide or a flat stone and pounded into a fine, fluffy powder using stone mauls. It was crucial to break down the tough muscle fibers completely. This powdered meat formed a base. Next came the fat. Tallow, which is rendered animal fat, was melted over a fire until it was a clear, hot liquid. This liquid fat was the key to preservation. It coated the meat particles, sealing them off from air and moisture, which are the main culprits behind The hot tallow was poured over the powdered meat, and the two were mixed together thoroughly until every bit of meat was saturated. The ratio was typically about 50-50 by weight, creating a very high-energy mixture. But pemmican wasn't just meat and fat. To add flavovitamins and a touch of sweetness, dried berries were often added to the mix. Berries like saskatoons, chokecherries, or cranberries were harvested in season, dried in the sun, and then crushed before being stirred into the meat and tallow mixture. These berries provided essential nutrients, like vitamin C, which helped prevent deficiencies like scurvy during long winters when fresh produce was unavailable. Sometimes, other flavorings like wild onions or herbs were included, depending on what was locally available. Once everything was mixed together, this rich, dense paste was packed tightly into containers to set and harden. The most common containers were bags made from rawhide. These bags were often shaped while the hide was still wet, and as it dried, It would shrink and create an airtight seal around the pemmican. A single one of these bags could weigh anywhere from 40 to 90 pounds and provide sustenance for a family for a long time. The final product was a solid block of high-energy food, rich in calories and stable at a wide range of temperatures. It was the perfect provision for war parties, long hunting expeditions, and for surviving harsh winters. Its value was so recognized that it became a staple trade item, especially during the fur trade era. Beyond pemmican and dried jerky, other preservation techniques were also vital. Fish, for example, was another important resource that needed to be stored. In coastal and riverside communities, fish were often smoked and dried in a similar way to meat. Smokehouses, simple structures made of wood and hides, were used to hang fish over a smoldering fire for days. The smoke would cure the fish, giving it a long shelf life and a distinctive flavor. Nuts and seeds were also gathered in huge quantities. Acorns, for instance, were a staple for many groups, but they contained tannins that make them bitter and indigestible, so they had to be processed. This involved cracking them open, grinding the nut meat into a flour, and then leaching it with water to remove the tannins. This flour could then be used to make bread or porridge. Other nuts, like pine nuts and walnuts, were simply dried and stored in their shells, which provided natural protection. For storing all these preserved foods, people created a variety of ingenious containers from natural materials. Besides the rawhide bags for pemmican, woven baskets were incredibly common. These were crafted from grasses, reeds, or thin strips of wood. Some baskets were woven so tightly that they were waterproof and could be used for storing liquids or even for cooking by dropping hot stones into them. Clay pots, made from local clay and fired to become hard and durable, were excellent for storing grains, seeds, and dried goods, protecting them from pests and moisture. For smaller quantities or for personal use, leather pouches or small bags made from animal bladders were used. In colder climates, nature provided the ultimate freezer. Pits were dug deep into the ground, reaching the permafrost layer. These underground cellars, often lined with stones or grass, would stay frozen year-round, allowing for the long-term storage of fresh meat and fish. It was a natural, energy-free way to keep food from spoiling. This method was crucial for communities in the far north. Every one of these methods, from drying and smoking to creating pemmican and digging cellar pits, demonstrates a profound understanding of nature and a remarkable level of ingenuity. These weren't just ways to store food. They were the very foundation of survival, allowing communities to thrive in challenging environments, endure lean times, and build resilient cultures. The ability to preserve a surplus meant security and stability. This knowledge of food preservation was passed down through generations, a critical skill set that ensured the continuation of their way of life. It is a powerful reminder of how resourcefulness and a deep connection to the environment can lead to brilliant and sustainable solutions. Thanks for joining me for this look into the world of ancient food storage. It's truly fascinating to see how these techniques were perfected over centuries. If you enjoyed this chapter, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next exploration. We'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back to our journey into the past. Today, in Chapter 16, we're diving into one of the most heartwarming aspects of ancient life: feasting and sharing. The great hunt is over. The massive task of processing the meat has begun. But before the long preservation process is complete, there's a moment of immediate reward, a celebration of bounty and community. Imagine the scene. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and roasting meat. Thin strips of bison are already hanging on racks, slowly drying in the wind and sun, a future larder secured. But not everything is saved for later. Some of the most prized parts of the animal are meant for now, a fresh feast for the hunters and their families who work so tirelessly. The fire is the heart of this gathering. It crackles and dances, casting a warm, flickering glow on the faces of everyone gathered around. Children, their eyes wide with excitement, sit close to the heat, while elders settle into comfortable spots, ready to share their wisdom and stories. This isn't just about eating. It's about coming together, reinforcing bonds, and sharing the success of the hunt. First to be prepared is the liver, rich and packed with nutrients. It's a delicacy that can't be preserved. It's sliced thin and cooked quickly over the hot coals, perhaps on flat stones placed right in the embers. The sizzle is a sound of pure satisfaction. The cooked liver is tender, almost melting in your mouth. Its robust flavor a powerful reminder of the life-giving energy of the animal. It's passed around, shared among everyone, ensuring each person gets a taste of this immediate, nourishing gift. Next, the marrow bones. These are the ultimate comfort food of the ancient world. The long, heavy bones are cracked open to reveal the rich, fatty marrow inside. They might be roasted directly in the fire until the marrow softens into a buttery, almost liquid state. Then, using a bone sliver or a twig as a spoon, the marrow is scooped out. Its rich, savory taste is incredible, a burst of energy and flavor. It's a treat especially for the children and the elders, a concentrated source of the fats so crucial for survival. And of course, there are the tender cuts. Think of the tenderloins, the most succulent parts of the bison, too precious to be dried into jerky. These are skewered on greenwood sticks and roasted over the open flame. The outside gets a perfect char, sealing in the juices. Each bite is a burst of pure, unadulterated flavor. The taste of wild freedom, of a successful hunt, and of the land itself. There's no fancy seasoning, just the pure essence of the meat, smoke, and fire. As the food is shared, the stories begin. A hunter recounts the thrill of the chase, acting out the tense moments before the final, successful strike. His hands draw the shape of the great beast in the air, his voice rising and falling with the drama of the tale. The others listen, nodding, laughing, sometimes chiming in with their own memories of past hunts. The firelight dances on their animated faces, and the shared experience brings them closer. Elders take this opportunity to pass down knowledge. They might point to a particular cut of meat and explain its use not just for food, but for tools or ceremony. They tell stories of the ancestors, of the spirits of the animals, and of the proper way to live in balance with the world. These are not formal lessons, but casual conversations woven into the fabric of the meal, absorbed by the younger generation as they eat. There is laughter, so much laughter. Jokes are told, friendly teasing is exchanged, and the relief and joy of a full belly and a secure future are palpable. The children, finished with their share of marrow, might chase each other in the shadows just beyond the fire's glow, their happy shrieks adding to the symphony of the evening. This communal meal is a vital pause. The work of butchering and preserving is immense and exhausting. This feast is a moment to refuel, both body and spirit. It's a tangible connection to the animal, honoring its sacrifice by wasting nothing and savoring its freshest gifts. It reinforces the core values of the community: cooperation, sharing, and gratitude. Everyone who participated, from the strongest hunter to the child who gathered firewood, has a place at the fire and a share in the bounty. Think about how different this is from our modern meals. Here, every single person knows exactly where their food came from. They felt the effort, the risk, and the skill involved. This deep connection fosters a profound respect for the source of their sustenance. The meal is a ceremony of gratitude, a celebration of life and interdependence. As the fire burns down to glowing embers and the stars blaze brightly in the vast, dark sky, a sense of peace settles over the camp. Bellies are full, hearts are content, and the community is stronger. The strips of meat continue their slow transformation into jerky. But the memory of this fresh feast, of and laughter shared around the fire, will nourish their spirits for a long time to come. It's a reminder that survival wasn't just about the practicalities of food and shelter. It was about the warmth of human connection, the joy of sharing, and the stories that bind a people together. This chapter of feasting and sharing shows us that the heart of ancient life was not just in the struggle for survival, but in the beautiful, simple moments of coming together. It was in the taste of fresh roasted meat, the warmth of a shared fire, and the sound of laughter under the stars. Thank you for joining me for this cozy look into the past. I hope it gave you a new appreciation for the simple act of sharing a meal. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever wondered how ancient peoples traveled vast distances without refrigerators or grocery stores? How did entire families pack up and move for seasons, trade, or even just visit relatives hundreds of miles away? The secret, a revolutionary food technology, was dried meat. Today, in Chapter 17, we're rediving into the world of long-distance travel and discovering how this simple preservation method made epic journeys possible. Imagine a family preparing for a journey. The air is filled with a sense of purpose and anticipation. For weeks, they've been hunting and processing meat, not for tonight's dinner, but for the weeks of travel ahead. Slices of bison, deer, or elk are hung on racks, slowly drying in the sun and wind, or smoked over a low fire. This process removes the moisture, making the meat lightweight, nutrient-dense, and incredibly long. This wasn't just food, it was fuel for the road, a guarantee of survival when the landscape offered nothing. So, how did this change everything? Before effective preservation, long-distance travel was a massive gamble. You were entirely dependent on finding food along the way. A bad hunting day could spell disaster. But with a supply of dried meat, families could plan journeys with confidence. They could now undertake seasonal migrations, moving from winter camps to summer hunting grounds, following the natural cycles of the animals they relied on. This wasn't just a casual trip. It was a fundamental part of their lifestyle, and dried meat was the key that unlocked it. Let's think about the logistics. What did a family actually pack for? Say, a 200-mile trek. The heaviest burden of any journey is food and water. A single person might need several pounds of fresh meat per day. Now multiply that by a family of 5 for a month-long journey. The weight would be staggering, impossible to carry. But dried meat is a game-changer. Once dried, meat loses about 3/4 of its weight. So, 10 pounds of fresh meat becomes a little over 2 pounds of jerky. Suddenly, carrying a month's worth of protein for an entire family becomes feasible. Their packs would be a model of efficiency. Alongside the precious bundles of dried meat, they would carry essential tools: stone knives for repairs and food prep, hide scrapers and awls for mending clothes or shelters. They'd have fire-starting kits, perhaps with flint and pyrite, because fire meant warmth, protection, and the ability to cook. They'd carry water in containers made from animal bladders or woven, pitch-lined baskets. Bedding would consist of fur robes, which doubled as warm cloaks during the day. For shelter, they might carry lightweight hide tarps or rely on their knowledge of the land to build temporary shelters from branches and brush. Every single item had to justify its weight. There were no luxuries. The biggest luxury of all was the security provided by their preserved food. This lifted an immense mental and physical burden. Instead of every day being a desperate search for calories, the family could focus on covering ground, navigating the terrain, and staying safe from predators or harsh weather. The psychological relief must have been enormous. It transformed a perilous expedition into a manageable, predictable undertaking. Dried meat didn't just facilitate migrations. It fueled commerce and social connection. Imagine a group preparing for a trade journey. They might be traveling to a rendezvous point to trade their local specialty, like high-quality flint or obsidian, for things they couldn't find at home, such as seashells, copper, or different types of stone tools. Their packs would be loaded with their trade goods and, of course, enough dried meat to get them there and back. These journeys built networks, spread ideas, and moved resources across entire regions. A piece of obsidian from a volcano in the west might end up hundreds of miles to the east, all because a trader had enough jerky to make the trip. And what about family? Visits to neighboring groups or relatives in distant villages were now more than just a dream. Journeys that were once too risky to attempt became annual traditions. These visits were vital for maintaining kinship ties, arranging marriages, and strengthening alliances. It was through these journeys that culture was shared, stories were told, and a sense of a wider community was forged. An elder could share a story with a grandchild from a distant camp, all thanks to the humble strip of dried meat that made the visit possible. Let's put this into perspective. Think about a modern-day hiking trip. Even with our fancy dehydrated meals, we meticulously plan our food supply, counting every ounce. Now imagine doing that with the technology of thousands of years ago. The innovation of drying meat was as revolutionary as the invention of the wheel or the control of fire. It allowed humanity to expand, to connect, and to thrive in challenging environments. It broke the chains that tied people to one small territory and opened up the continent. The amount they carried was carefully calculated. An adult might consume about half a pound of dried meat per day on a strenuous journey. So for a family of 4 on a 3-week trip, that's over 40 pounds of dried meat. It's a heavy load, but manageable when distributed among the adults. Often, they would pound the dried meat and mix it with rendered fat and sometimes dried berries to create This was the ultimate travel food, a calorie-dense, nutrient-rich paste that would last for months, even years. It was compact, easy to carry, and could be eaten on the move without even needing to be cooked. These long journeys shaped the people who made them. They became expert navigators, reading the stars, the sun, and the subtle cues of the landscape. They developed incredible endurance and resilience. Children learned from a young age how to pack efficiently, how to pace themselves, and how to contribute to the group's survival on the trail. The journey itself was a classroom, teaching practical skills and reinforcing the importance of community and cooperation. So, the next time you see a piece of jerky, take a moment to appreciate its incredible history. It's not just a snack. It's a piece of technology that enabled our ancestors to explore their world, build societies, and connect with one another across vast and formidable landscapes. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our enduring drive to move, to discover, and to connect. The story of human migration is, in many ways, written in the simple, powerful language of preserved food. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you won't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the past. Today, we're diving into Chapter 18, Trade and Cultural Exchange. Imagine a world without money, without stores. A world where survival depended not just on what you could hunt or gather, but on the relationships you built with your neighbors. This was the reality for ancient peoples, and trade was the lifeblood of their communities. Let's picture the scene. A hunting party has been successful. They have more meat than they can possibly eat before it spoils what do. They get to work, skillfully slicing the meat into thin strips. These strips are then dried over a slow fire or under the hot sun, preserving them for months, even years. This dried meat, sometimes called jerky or biltong, is light, packed with protein, and easy to carry. It's not just food, it's a valuable commodity. But they didn't stop there. Another ingenious creation was pemmican. They would pound the dried meat into a powder, then mix it with rendered fat or tallow. Sometimes, they'd add dried berries for flavor and extra nutrients. This superfood was incredibly energy-dense and could last for an astonishingly long time, making it the perfect travel provision and a highly sought-after trade item. The tallow itself, the rendered animal fat, was also a valuable good, used for cooking, waterproofing, and even as a base for salves. So now our group has a surplus of these preserved goods. Meanwhile, another group living a few valleys over might have had a less successful hunting season but excels at different skills. This is where the magic of trade begins. Picture a vast, open plain under a wide blue sky. Two groups approached each other, not with weapons raised, but with hands open, carrying bundles of their finest goods. It's a meeting of families, of cultures. The hunters lay out their meticulously prepared dried meat strips and dense cakes of pemmican. They unroll beautifully tanned hides, soft and supple, perfect for clothing, shelter, or crafting. In return, the other group displays their own treasures. They might have traveled from a mountainous region, bringing with them precious obsidian. This volcanic glass, when expertly knapped, could produce blades sharper than steel. They also offer flint, another essential stone for making arrowheads, spear points, and fire-starting tools. Each piece of obsidian or flint represents not just a rock, but the key to a successful hunt, a warm fire, and a secure home. The exchange is a vibrant, social event. It's not a cold, silent transaction. People are talking, laughing, sharing stories of their journeys, their families, their successes and struggles. Children from different groups might play together at the edge of the clearing, their laughter echoing across the plains. This is more than just economics. It's the weaving of social fabric. Let's shift the scene to a sun-dappled forest clearing. Here, a group from the woodlands meets a coastal tribe. The forest dwellers might offer sturdy boughs made from yew wood, or perhaps intricately woven baskets. The coastal people, in turn, might trade beautiful beads made from seashells, polished until they gleam like pearls. These beads aren't just decorative. They carry symbolic meaning, representing status, identity, and spiritual beliefs. The tools exchanged are a testament to human ingenuity. A finely crafted axe head, a set of sharp bowls for leatherworking, or a stone mortar and pestle for grinding grains and nuts. Each tool saves time and effort, making life a little easier, a little more secure. The group receiving a new tool doesn't just get an object. They get the embodied knowledge and skill of the person who made it. These trade gatherings were also festivals of cultural exchange. New ideas traveled along with the goods. A new way to tie a knot, a more effective method for tanning a hide, a different song or a story about the creation of the world. People would observe each other's clothing, hairstyles, and decorations, borrowing and adapting styles. This cross-pollination of ideas was just as important as the exchange of physical items. It spurred innovation and enriched the cultural life of everyone involved. Trust was the currency of this ancient world. A deal was unsealed with a handshake, but was built on a history of fair dealings and mutual respect. A reputation for quality goods and honest exchange was the most valuable asset a group could have. These relationships, maintained over generations, created vast networks that stretched for hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles. An obsidian tool found in a forest village might have originated from a volcano 3 mountain ranges away, passing through countless hands on its journey. These friendly meetings were essential for survival. They provided access to resources that weren't available locally, buffered against times of scarcity, and fostered alliances that were crucial in a sometimes dangerous world. When a drought hit one region, a friendly neighboring group with access to a flowing river might share their bounty. This wasn't charity. It was a reciprocal relationship, an understanding that next time, the roles might be reversed. So when we think about the ancient world, let's not just imagine isolated groups struggling for survival. Let's see them as part of a dynamic, interconnected network. See the smoke rising from 100 different camps, each one a hub of production, innovation, and culture. See the well-worn trails crisscrossing the landscape, not as paths of war, but as highways of commerce and friendship. The dried meat, the obsidian blade, the shalbadis weren't just things. They were the threads that connected people, built communities, and laid the foundation for the complex societies that would follow. They were a testament to our ancestors' remarkable ability to cooperate, innovate, and thrive. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of ancient trade. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey into the past, where every action was tied to the rhythm of the earth. Today, we're exploring Chapter 19, Seasonal Cycles and the Enduring Practice of Meat Drying. This wasn't just a chore, it was the heartbeat of survival, a tradition that pulsed with the turning of the seasons. Imagine a world where your pantry wasn't a trip to the store, but a direct relationship with the land and its creatures. The drying rack wasn't just a tool, it was a calendar, a symbol of community, and a testament to ingenuity. Let's start on the Great Plains, where life revolved around the mighty bison. The Great Bison Hunts were monumental events, a confluence of skill, courage, and deep spiritual respect. These weren't chaotic chases, they were meticulously planned operations. Communities would come together, sometimes traveling for weeks, to intercept the vast herds. The success of these hunts determined the well-being of the people for the entire year. Once the hunt was over, the real work began. The sheer volume of meat was staggering. Every part of the animal was used, a principle of zero waste born from necessity and reverence. The choicest cuts were set aside for immediate feasts, a celebration of bounty and a moment of communal gratitude. But the vast majority of the meat had to be preserved. This is where the drying racks became the center of the encampment. Under the vast, open sky, women, elders, and children worked in unison. The meat was sliced into thin, uniform strips. a skill passed down through generations. The thickness had to be just right. Too thick and it would spoil. Too thin and it would become brittle. These strips were then draped over the racks, which were essentially long poles supported by tripods or other structures. The sun and wind were the primary agents of preservation. The dry prairie air would wick away moisture, creating a product that was lightweight, nutrient-dense, and could last for months, even years. This dried meat, or jerky, was the original energy bar. It was the food that fueled hunters on long treks, sustained families through harsh winters, and served as a vital trade good between different groups. The rhythm was clear. Hunt, process, preserve, survive. Now, let's travel westward, to the Pacific Northwest, where the lifeblood of the people wasn't bison, but salmon. The annual salmon runs were a time of incredible abundance, a miraculous event where the rivers turned silver with fish returning to their spawning grounds. Entire villages would relocate to their traditional fishing sites along the rivers. The air would be thick with the sounds of rushing water, the splash of fish, and the excited chatter of the community. Various methods were used to catch the salmon, from weirs and traps to nets and spears. Just like the bison hunt, this was a communal effort. Once caught, the salmon were brought ashore, and the process of preservation began immediately. The fish were cleaned and filleted with expert precision. Some would be smoked in specially constructed smokehouses, imparting a deep, rich flavor while curing the fish. But many were also wind-dried. The fillets were hung on massive wooden racks, often positioned to catch the constant breeze blowing in from the ocean or down through the river valleys. The salty air itself acted as a mild preservative. The sight of these racks, laden with thousands of ruby-red salmon fillets, glistening in the sun, was a powerful symbol of wealth and security. This dried salmon was a staple, providing essential proteins and oils throughout the year when fresh fish were unavailable. The cycle was tied not to the migration of herds, but to the pull of the moon and the instincts of the fish. A different rhythm, but the same fundamental principle of living in harmony with nature's offerings. Heading north, into the vast subarctic and Arctic regions, we encounter yet another cycle, this one dictated by the movements of the caribou. For the peoples of the north, the caribou was everything. It provided food, clothing, tools, and shelter. The semi-annual caribou migrations were the most important events of the year. Immense herds, sometimes numbering in the tens of thousands, would move across the tundra, following ancient routes. Hunters would intercept them at strategic locations, like river crossings or narrow valleys. The environment here was far more challenging. The sun wasn't as strong, and the weather could be unpredictable. Preservation techniques had to be adapted, while sun and wind drying were still used during the brief, intense summers. A lot of the meat was processed through a combination of drying and freezing. Thin strips of caribou meat, known as pitsik, were hung on racks to dry in the cold, arid wind. The freezing temperatures would also help to desiccate the meat, effectively freeze-drying it. This method was incredibly efficient. The resulting product was incredibly light and could be easily carried on long journeys. It could be eaten as is, or pounded with fat and berries to create pemmican, a superfood that sustained northern peoples through the long, dark winters. The life cycle here was stark and demanding, and the ability to preserve the caribou harvest was the key to survival in one of the world's harshest environments. Across all these cultures, the drying rack itself was a living part of the community. It wasn't a permanent, static structure. Each year, as the season for the hunt or the fish run approached, the racks were revisited. They were a focal point of preparation. People would gather to inspect them. Were the poles still strong? Had any been damaged by winter storms or animals? Repairs were made. New poles were cut and prepared. The entire structure might need to be rebuilt or reinforced. And as the community grew, so did the racks. A successful year might mean more hunters, more families, or simply a larger population to feed. The racks had to be expanded to accommodate a larger harvest. The size of a camp's drying racks was a direct reflection of its strength and prosperity. A camp with vast, sprawling racks was a sign of a healthy, thriving community that was successful in its relationship with the environment. Building and maintaining these racks was a communal task, reinforcing social bonds and ensuring that everyone was invested in the collective well-being. It was a tangible way of planning for the future, of literally building the framework for the year's security. This annual return to the practice was more than just physical labor. It was a cultural and spiritual renewal. It reconnected the people to their traditions, to the knowledge of their ancestors. The elders would guide the younger generations, teaching them the proper way to slice the meat, how to read the weather for the best drying conditions, and the stories and songs that accompanied the work. It was a time of knowledge transfer, where the practical skills of survival were interwoven with the community's history and cosmology. The act of preparing the racks and drying the meat was a reaffirmation of their identity and their place in the world. It was a practice that said, "We are still here. We remember the old ways, and we will provide for our children." So, as we look back at these seasonal cycles, we see that drying meat was not just a single technique. It was a dynamic, responsive tradition that was at the very core of human existence for millennia. From the sun-baked plains to the misty coasts and the frozen tundra, people adapted this fundamental technology to their unique environments. The annual rhythm of repairing, rebuilding, and using the drying racks was a cycle of renewal, a testament to resilience, and a beautiful expression of a life lived in deep connection with the natural world. It reminds us that for most of human history, security wasn't found in a bank, but in the wisdom of the seasons and the shared work of the community. Thanks for joining me on this exploration today. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the way we used to live. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. The sun is gone now, leaving behind a sky of deep indigo and the first shy stars of evening. Below, the world settles into a hush. The boisterous sounds of the day, the laughter, the calls, the busy hum of work have all faded away, replaced by the soft whisper of the wind through the drying racks. Here, in the quiet heart of the night, the air is cool and smells of earth and smoke. The last embers of the day's fires glow like sleepy, orange eyes in the darkness. They pulse gently, a steady, rhythmic heartbeat against the vast silence of the landscape. A lone figure moves with a slow, deliberate grace, tending to these embers, ensuring they last through the night without flaring into a blaze. This is the Watcher, the guardian of the quiet hours. The Watcher's movements are a familiar dance, a ritual as old as the community itself. A gentle stir of the coals with a long stick sends a shower of sparks spiraling upward, tiny, fleeting stars that mimic the grand display above. They vanish as quickly as they appear, absorbed into the immense, dark canvas. The smoke from the embers doesn't billow or rush. It rises in a lazy, graceful ribbon, twisting and unfurling as it ascends, a silver thread stitching the earth to the sky. From this vantage point, the village is a collection of slumbering shapes. The tents and shelters, which bustled with life just hours ago, are now still silhouettes against the starlight. Inside each one, families are curled together, breathing in the slow, even rhythm of sleep. The day's labors are done, the stories have been told, and now is the time for rest and renewal. The only sounds are the gentle crackle of the embers, the occasional sigh of the wind, and the distant, mournful call of a night bird. The Watcher pauses, leaning on the stick, and looks up. The sky is a breathtaking spectacle. The Milky Way is a luminous river of light, a spill of cosmic dust across the heavens. Constellations ancient and familiar chart their slow course across the dome of night. It's a sight that inspires both awe and a deep sense of peace. Out here, under this immense and silent sky, a person can feel both incredibly small and profoundly connected to everything. There's a comfort in this solitude. The Watcher is not lonely, but alone with the night, a silent companion to the sleeping world. The task is simple but essential: to keep the fire safe, to watch over the community as it rests. It's a role of quiet responsibility, a service performed not for praise or recognition, but for the well-being of the whole. As the hours drift by, the moon begins its ascent, a pale, glowing crescent that casts a soft, silvery light over the land. It illuminates the edges of the drying racks, making the hanging herbs and hides gleam with a ghostly luminescence. The world is transformed, painted in shades of silver and shadow. The familiar landscape becomes a place of mystery and beauty, a different world entirely from its sunlit counterpart. The watcher draws a deep breath of the cool night air. It's clean and crisp, carrying the scent of pine from the distant forest and the faint, sweet smell of the drying plants. It's a scent of sustenance, of preparation, of the quiet work that ensures the community will thrive. The night is a time for reflection. The mind, freed from the distractions of the day, can wander. Thoughts drift like the smoke, touching on the events of the past day, the hopes for the morrow, the memories of seasons gone by. There is no urgency here, no pressure to solve problems or make decisions. There is only the gentle flow of time, marked by the steady crawl of the stars across the sky. The watcher's gaze drifts from the stars back to the sleeping village. There's a profound sense of love and protectiveness in that gaze. These are not just structures. They are homes. Inside are friends, family, children, dreaming their innocent dreams. This quiet vigil is an act of care, a promise that they are safe, that they can rest without fear. An owl hoots nearby, its call a soft, resonant question in the night. The watcher smiles faintly. It's a familiar voice, another keeper of the night's secrets. The world is far from empty. It's teeming with a different kind of life, one that awakens when the sun goes down. The rustle of a small creature in the undergrowth, the flutter of a moth's wings near the embers, all are part of the night's rich tapestry. The fire needs tending again, another gentle stir, another cascade of short-lived sparks. The embers are burning low now, a sign that the deepest part of the night is approaching, the time just before the first hint of dawn. The air grows colder, and the watcher pulls a blanket tighter around their shoulders. There is a peace in this cyclical rhythm, the setting of the sun, the rise of the stars, the quiet of the night, and the eventual promise of a new day. It's a rhythm that has governed life here for generations, a source of stability and comfort in a world that is always changing. Here, by the dying embers, under the vast and watchful sky, everything feels right. The worries and struggles of the day seem distant and small. What remains is a sense of belonging, of being part of something larger and more enduring than oneself. It's a feeling of deep, untroubled peace. The watcher settles onto a smooth, cool stone, content to simply be, to listen to the silence, to feel the gentle breath of the night on their skin, to watch the slow, majestic procession of the cosmos. This is not a time for doing, but for being. It is a moment of pure, quiet presence. As the moon climbs higher and the stars begin their slow descent toward the western horizon, a deep stillness settles over the world. It's the kind of quiet that sinks into your bones, that quiets the chatter of the mind and soothes the soul. It is the perfect end to a day, and the perfect preparation for the one to come. The last embers glow, a final, warm pulse in the heart of the night. And all is well. All is at peace. In our last chapter, we journeyed through the incredible ingenuity of ancient food preservation techniques. But this isn't just a story from the distant past. These methods are not relics, confined to history books. They are a living, breathing legacy, carried forward with reverence and skill by indigenous communities across North America today. This chapter is about that enduring legacy, a testament to resilience, wisdom, and a profound connection to the land. Imagine standing on the coast of the Pacific Northwest, where the scent of cedar and salt water fills the air. Here, for countless generations, communities like the Kwakwakak and Coast Salish have perfected the art of smoking salmon. This isn't just about preserving food, it's a sacred practice. The smokehouses, often built from cedar planks, are more than just structures. They are centers of community life, places where stories are shared and knowledge is passed down. The process is meticulous. Salmon, a gift from the rivers and the sea, is treated with the utmost respect. It's cleaned, filleted, and brined, then hung on racks inside the smokehouse. A slow, cool fire, often using alder wood, is maintained for days, sometimes weeks. The alder imparts a unique, delicate flavor, and the low temperature ensures the fish dries perfectly without cooking. The result is a nutrient-rich, preserved salmon that can sustain families through the long winter months. This isn't just about survival. It's a celebration of abundance and a deep understanding of natural cycles, the knowledge of which would to use, how to control the smoke, and when the fish is perfectly preserved is passed from elder to child, a thread connecting the present to a time-honored past. Now, let's travel eastward, to the vast plains and woodlands of the interior. Here, the bison, or buffalo, was the cornerstone of life for nations like the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Blackfoot. Every part of the animal was used, a principle of zero waste born from deep respect. One of the most important preservation methods was creating pemmican. This isn't just dried meat. It's a superfood, an energy-dense, portable powerhouse that fueled hunters, warriors, and entire communities. The process begins with drying lean meat, often bison, but also elk or deer. The meat is sliced thin and hung on racks to dry in the sun and wind, or slowly smoked over a fire. Once it's brittle, it's pounded into a fine powder. This is then mixed with rendered fat, which acts as a preservative and a source of calories. Finally, dried berries, like choke cherries or Saskatoon berries, are added, providing essential vitamins and a touch of sweetness. This mixture is then packed into rawhide bags, where it could last for years, even decades. The creation of pemmican is a communal activity, a time for women to gather, work together, and share knowledge, reinforcing social bonds while ensuring the community's food security. Moving to the arid landscapes of the Southwest, we find the ancestral Pueblones and their descendants, including the Hopi and Zuni peoples. Here, in a land of scarce water and intense sun, drying was the key to survival. Corn, or maize, was the sacred center of their diet. After the harvest, corn was shucked and laid out on rooftops or hung from rafters to dry completely in the hot, dry air. Different colored varieties of corn were grown, each with its own purpose and story. But it wasn't just corn. Chiles, squash, and beans were also preserved through drying. Squash was cut into long spirals and hung to dry, looking like golden garlands decorating the homes. Chiles were strung into vibrant red ristras, a beautiful and practical sight that has become an iconic symbol of the region. These dried foods provided sustenance through the winter and during times of drought. This mastery of dehydration wasn't just a technique. It was an intimate conversation with the environment, understanding how to harness the power of the sun to create lasting abundance. Further north, in the subarctic and Arctic regions, the Inuit and other northern peoples developed incredible methods for preserving food in a climate of extreme cold. Freezing was, of course, a natural advantage. Meat and fish could be kept frozen for long periods, but they also developed unique fermentation techniques. Kiviak, for instance, is a traditional Greenlandic Inuit food made by fermenting ox in a sealskin. While it might sound unusual to us, it's a brilliant way to preserve birds and create a nutrient-rich food source packed with vitamins, essential for surviving the dark Arctic winter when fresh food is unavailable. This process shows an incredible understanding of microbiology long before the science was formally understood, turning potential spoilage into a method of preservation. What connects all these diverse practices is a profound philosophy. Food is not a commodity. It is a relative, a gift from the Creator and the earth. This worldview fosters a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility. You don't just take, you give back. You manage resources sustainably to ensure they will be there for future generations. This is why traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK, is so vital. It's a holistic system of understanding the environment, passed down through generations, that integrates the spiritual and the practical. Today, there is a powerful movement within Indigenous communities to revitalize and reclaim these traditional foods. In a world of processed foods and industrial agriculture, returning to these ancestral diets is an act of cultural sovereignty and a path to better health. Chefs like Sean Sherman, the sous chef, are bringing these ancient ingredients and techniques to the forefront of modern cuisine, reintroducing the world to the rich and diverse flavors of North America. Community gardens, seed banks, preserving heirloom varieties, and educational workshops are all part of this renaissance. Elders are teaching young people how to smoke fish, make pemmican, and forage for wild plants, ensuring this vital knowledge is not lost. This legacy of food preservation is more than just a collection of clever techniques. It's a story of ingenuity, resilience, and a deep, spiritual connection to the land. It's a reminder that for thousands of years, People have thrived by listening to the earth, respecting its gifts, and living in balance with its cycles. The survival of these traditions is a powerful testament to the strength and wisdom of indigenous peoples. It's a living history, a delicious heritage, and a crucial lesson for our modern world on how to live sustainably and respectfully on this planet. As we conclude our journey through the annals of food preservation, let's carry this respect forward. Let's appreciate the food on our plates, understand where it comes from, and acknowledge the ancient wisdom that helps feed us to this day. The next time you enjoy smoked salmon, or even simple dried fruit, take a moment to think of the millennia of innovation that it represents. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Please like, subscribe, and follow for more journeys into our shared human story. And so, we come to the end of our journey, a final reflection as the day fades and the world prepares for sleep. Let us close our eyes and allow our minds to drift back in time, back to the very dawn of our story. Can you feel it? The gentle rhythm of ancient life, a pace set not by clocks, but by the rising and setting of the sun, the turning of the seasons. Imagine a world untouched by the clamor of modernity, a world where the loudest sounds are the whispering of the wind through tall grasses, the distant call of a bird, or the gentle lapping of water against a riverbank. This is the world of our ancestors, the cradle of humanity. Picture a small group gathered as twilight paints the sky in shades of purple and orange. A fire crackles at the center of their camp, a beacon of warmth and light against the encroaching darkness. See the flames dance, casting long, flickering shadows that play upon the faces of the people. These are faces etched with the stories of their lives, the hardships, the joys, the quiet moments of connection. Leanin, closer listen. Can you hear the low murmur of their voices? It's not a language we would recognize, yet the meaning is timeless. They share tales of the day's hunt, plans for the morrow, kiat, reassurances, and perhaps a song passed down through generations. These are the sounds of community, of family, of belonging. The air is filled with the scent of wood smoke and roasting food. The evening meal, a gift from the land, is being prepared. This act, so simple and yet so profound, is the very heartbeat of their existence. It's a ritual of gratitude, a celebration of survival. Every bite is a testament to their skill, their knowledge of the land, and their ability to work together. This connection to food is primal, a direct link between their bodies and the earth that sustains them. They understood, in a way we have perhaps forgotten, that they were not separate from nature, but an integral part of its intricate web. As you breathe in, imagine you are breathing that same cool, clean air. As you breathe out, feel the tensions of your own day release. Just as they would have released the burdens of their day by the fire's glow, their worries were different from our success of a hunt, the changing weather, the safety of their children. Yet, the underlying emotions are the same. The need for security, the love for family, the hope for a better tomorrow. These are the threads that connect us to them across the vast expanse of time. We are their descendants, and their legacy lives within our very DNA. Feel the earth beneath you, solid and supportive. Imagine you are lying on that same ground, wrapped in furs, with star-dusted canopy of the night sky stretching out above. Without the haze of city lights, the stars would have blazed with an unimaginable intensity. The moon, a silent guardian, would have bathed the landscape in its soft, silvery light. In this profound quiet, the mind could truly rest. The day's events could be processed, not through endless distraction, but through quiet contemplation and the world of dreams. This is the timeless human experience, the pull of the fire, the comfort of company, the satisfaction of a full belly, and the peace of a sky full of stars. It's a connection that transcends culture, language, and millennia. It speaks to a fundamental part of who we are. It's the deep-seated need for connection to each other, to our food, to the natural world, and to the great cycle of life, death, and renewal. Allow the image of that crackling fire to soothe you. Let the quiet voices on the wind become a lullaby. The rhythm of this ancient life was slow, deliberate, and deeply connected to the world around them. It was a life of presence, of being fully in the moment, because survival depended on it. There was no room for the scattered anxieties that often plague our modern minds. There was only the here and now, the warmth of the fire, the presence of kin, the feeling of safety in the heart of the clan. As you drift deeper into relaxation, carry this feeling of connection with you. Remember that you are part of this long, unbroken chain of humanity. The same moon that watches over you tonight watched over them. The same need for rest and rejuvenation that you feel now was felt by them at the end of each day. Their world was vastly different, yet the core of the human spirit remains unchanged. Let the worries of your world dissolve. Let the noise fade away. In each place, invite the deep, resonant silence of the ancient night. Invite the warmth of that ancestral fire into your heart. Feel the security of belonging to something so vast and enduring. You are a part of this grand story, a continuation of a legacy of survival, adaptation, and love. Now, as you settle into the final moments before sleep, let your breath be your anchor. With each inhale, draw in the peace of that primordial landscape. With each exhale, release all that no longer serves you. Imagine your own bed is a safe and quiet clearing, and your blankets are the warm furs that protected our ancestors from the night's chill. You are safe. You are connected. You are ready for rest. The story of humanity is long, and tonight, you play your part by resting, by dreaming, by renewing your strength for the day to come. Sleep now, and let the quiet voices on the wind carry you into a deep and peaceful slumber. Good night.